All right, we are back here on the podcast, getting you ready for the first golf major of the season. The Masters starts on Thursday at Augusta National. Joining today, our great golf guy from the podcast. He works at the PGA Tour, Dan DeMartini is here. Dan, how are you?
I'm doing well. Thanks, Mike. We are firmly into golf season. I literally got out, got my first good sunburn recently playing, and have been enjoying obviously the season so far. So hope all of your listeners that are golfers out there are getting on the range and getting out for good rounds.
Yeah, for sure. The weather up here has been a little like inconsistent. Like we had, I think, the past 2 days, like prior to us speaking, I think we're like in the mid 70s, which is about 25 degrees above normal for this time of year up here. And then
Mhm.
today it's back to about 50. So like we're in that little yo-yo right now. I can't decide whether it wants to be summer or spring.
Oh, well, hopefully you can get out one day and then enjoy, a good recovery day in the cold. But the consistency's coming. We all know that the hot, warm, up northeast days are coming, and then you get a great fall to get some very different golf. But down here it's already 90 degrees and we're in it.
Yeah, that's for sure here. So let's talk on some like golf headlines. It's been a while since we talked about golf here. And I feel like there's like more storylines that I'm aware of as a casual fan than there have been in recent years. I think it's probably a good sign for the sport. So I want to start here. Like obviously one of the big headlines, Brooks Koepka comes back to the PGA Tour this year after spending a couple of years at Live. So like I have not paid too much into how Brooks has done since he got back. Like what can you tell me about like what Brooks is up to since he's come back to the PGA?
Yeah, there's been really great storylines, and obviously, Brooks is at kind of at that point of his career where he had an opportunity to come back, and he once again, it's the I guess the circumstances around his return under the policy that was set up basically dictate that on the PGA Tour schedule, obviously the competition itself varies each week, right? You've got signature events that require a certain number of points and eligibility to get into those, and then there's full field events as well. So Brooks right now, based off of the criteria, is playing predominantly in the full field events and working his way to qualify into the signature events. So he is playing some tournaments, which is great for golf that maybe in the past you didn't get to see him play in. He's done fairly well so far. And I think the biggest thing for him is he, obviously given his eligibility in the Players Championship, which, can argue. That was definitely a storyline early in the season. March was major, and the Players Championship is looked at as the same level as the majors, and it is such a brutally difficult golf course here at TPC Sawgrass, right here in the backyard behind me, and Brooks played very well. I mean, T13 finish at the Players. He's made 4 of 6 cuts so far. He had a top 10 finish at Cognizant, which is in South Florida, kind of his local course of sorts. It's not too far away from where his home base is. So the Florida events were very kind to Brooks. He is really, once again, you can imagine going from playing a very grueling, long PGA Tour career schedule to changing up the style of play and then coming back and playing 4 competitive rounds and really grinding it out with all these young players. And we could talk probably the biggest headline of the year has been Jacob Bridgman. We can get into him in a minute, but now Brooks, who is in his mid 30s, is now playing against all these young 20-year-olds. And it just every year on the PGA Tour gets more and more competitive. And I think if you watch Brooks closely, you're seeing, he can only control his own game. And he still has some great metrics. He's doing incredibly well if you look at the actual stats when it comes to approach to green and strokes gained towards green. He's way up there. He's top 10. But basically that means that after he driving the ball, putting himself in a position to make a birdie. But the big problem has been driving accuracy and then putting. And we all know with Brooks, it's hot and cold on the greens. So it's basically what I'll say to the casual viewer who hasn't followed Brooks too much is once he gets the putter going, and if he has a really good week with the driver where he's in the fairway and got good angles to the green, watch out because the metrics are there. If he can just start making some more putts and he can just start giving himself some easier lies off the tee box. So the good news is that he's elite in some of the categories, but we know in golf, the hardest part is you got to drive it, you got to get it on the green, and then you got to get it in the hole. So there's really three facets there. And while you're elite in one, you got to be elite in all three.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, like, the other hard. So I noticed too, at least it popped on my radar in terms of a casual perspective here, is that like Scotty Scheffler, we know how great he's been. Like for some reason, it feels like he's getting off to these slow starts, these tournaments, and then turning it on the weekend to get into like the top 20, top 10. Like, what do you take away from what we've seen with this uncharacteristically slow start for Scotty, which feels like is like, compared to the rest of the tour, it feels like he's like, now just doing experiencing what everybody else usually does.
And here's what's crazy. Last year he won six events. I'm sorry. He basically put himself in a position where last year, if you look at just the first six events of this year versus last year, he has more points and he's made more money this year when people are thinking that he was off, to a quote unquote slow start. I think it's just that people don't realize he did not get his first win last year until May. So, and then he was just so red hot the entire remainder of the season. But if you actually are just going off of the first six events to the first six events of where we're at with Scotty right now, he's actually played better this year. So the narrative is a little funky. I think it's just because he was so brilliant and so dominant for the most of the summer and most of the end of last season that people think because he's cooled off, quote unquote. I mean, he won an event this year already that people forget about. He won the American Express. So it's just a little crazy to me that you see him at the top of the leaderboard finish tied for second or third place, and they're like, oh, Scotty's not doing great or this or that. But he's still right there. I mean, this is a guy who doesn't miss cuts. And yeah, he gets off to slow starts and maybe he hasn't pushed his way all the way to the top, but golf is really hard. And there's so much young talent right now on top of the big name players who are actually still playing incredibly well again. I mean, look at Colin Morikawa. Look at where Xander is right now in the top 10 in the FedEx Cup. I mean, Justin Rose has won a tournament. So you're dealing with legacy players, and then you're dealing with this up and coming talent like Akshay Bhatia and Minwoo Lee and all of these big fan favorite guys who are all pushing him as well. So things are never easy on the tour, and we're so used to seeing Scotty be so dominant, but people got to give him a little bit of time. And I think that biggest thing, an eye-opening thing for me is while yes, it feels like Scotty's been quiet, really look at the numbers year over year and realize golf is a long season and he's just getting started.
Yeah, that's for sure here. You mentioned some of the guys who are playing well. Who are some people who have stood out so far in the early portion of the season?
Well, I think you can't go without saying Jacob Bridgman and what he's done so far. He's first in the FedEx Cup. As I said, he's 26 years old. This is a guy that you probably have seen his name on the leaderboard, but you're like, who is this guy? And what he's, I mean, he's made 8 of 8 cuts. He finished in the top 30 last year. He made it to Eastlake very quietly while he finished 27th in the FedEx Cup overall. This is a guy whose game continues to ascend. He literally, out of the 8 tournaments he's played, he has not finished outside the top 20 in any event. So, I mean, and he won the Genesis Invitational, so which is one of the hardest golf courses if you've ever seen Riviera. It's very, very difficult to win there. So here's a guy who is 26. He's got all the talent in the world. He's got a great demeanor for playing golf, and he's definitely somebody who, if he comes on the broadcast and you've never watched him, it's worth sitting down and taking the time because this could be that next big name that emerges as a star on the tour. Some other great kind of guys that are playing well right now: Cameron Young. Some casual golf fans or guys listening or your fan base here, you might know him from the Ryder Cup. He's been on the President's Cup team. He won the Players Championship in pretty dramatic fashion over Matt Fitzpatrick. Very recently, he's from Garrison, Briarcliff Manor area. So you got a local guy you can root for in Cameron Young. I believe his dad was the head pro at Sleepy Hollow. So those even the, kind of in the Westchester area, Cameron Young, is definitely a guy you can root for and kind of think of as a hometown hero of sorts. And then a lot of the guys that I was naming there. So Matt Fitzpatrick, obviously, he has not gotten over the hump just yet, but he is constantly competing right now. His game is very, very tight. He's a fun watch. He's very analytical. He's from the UK. He's not shy about saying what's on his mind. So if you like a feistier player, I really like Matt Fitzpatrick a lot. You got Chris Goddard, who makes golf look really, really easy. And but at the same time, and he's already got a couple wins. You've probably seen his name emerge recently. There was a great piece called Chasing Sunday that the PGA Tour recently put out. You've probably seen that headline. It was kind of the NFL Films version of the Players Championship, and Chris Goddard was one of the players featured and mic'd up throughout the entirety of their round. And you really get to see his perspective and what it's like to play during the Players Championship. So, highly encourage you to go to YouTube and check out Chasing Sunday if you haven't seen it. And then some of the other names. Xander has been in the mix. Everybody knows Xander Schauffele by now. He's a great personality, a great ambassador for the game of golf, and he's played great. Colin Morikawa obviously getting a big win this season as well. Everybody knows Colin, but he's also dealing with a back injury, so not sure exactly what's going on. And then the other big name outside of, I guess, two of them that I said, Akshay Bhatia, who, a lot of fans. He's very, very animated. He's very fun. He's young. And then Minwoo Lee, same thing. Minwoo has a huge fan base, an international fan base. And they both of those guys are such great faces for the PGA Tour as well, in that they are wonderful talents, but they're also just a lot of fun and interactive with the fans, and they kind of get the big picture. So that's kind of the names that are really in the top 10 right now that you can really keep an eye on. And it should be fun. And then you've got Scotty always lurking.
Yeah, definitely fun stuff here. I think the last thing I want to touch on before we get to the Masters topic here is like there's a lot of rumblings about the potential for starting next season a new streamlined PGA Tour schedule. We've heard if you follow the golf world, basically it runs from like let's say what January, November seems pretty accurate in terms of this. And now there's talk about okay, doing a big 20 main event tour schedule. A lot of the signature events get folded in here. I don't know what's happening to some of these other events and like I did sort of make it more, compact of basically from after the Super Bowl through like beginning of September when the golf weather peaks in most of the country. Like, what can you tell me about like the concept? I know it's not publicly out yet, but like the general thinking behind what this new schedule could look like.
Yeah, and our new CEO, Brian Rolap, has made it pretty clear in what he said so far that, you want to build scarcity, in you want that when the casual fan, golf fan, or even the passionate golf fan tunes into a PGA Tour event, you want to know what's on the line. You want to see your stars, you want to see them playing big courses that everybody knows and everybody is, the big traditional golf courses that everybody, kind of in the lore of venues matter in golf, and the courses themselves and the tradition behind them. So you want to see them playing there with big stakes, and you want to see them in markets that matter, that mean a lot to the game of golf and can bring more and more fans in. And I'll tell you that they're taking all of that into effect as part of the plan for the future of the schedule. Now, I can tell you at this point, no decisions have been made. They're still actively working through all the details of that and what it means. I do think that, the timeline is going to not impact 2027 because obviously we're so far into 2026 already. I mean, we're 8, 9 tournaments in already, so you can't really make changes. And it'd be like, the NFL making major changes to the schedule in week 10, so you can't do that. So I do think that, kind of the future is still being outlined. I think that there's a lot of moving parts. Golf and the way it's absorbed is a little different. Everybody's kind of used to the way that golf is presented with, the TV broadcast, and then there's other things with YouTube and social media, but the whole media landscape is changing so much. So, of how golf is absorbed and how all sports are absorbed. So I think that you have to take into account, what do the players want? What do the fans want? What's best for the game of golf with the PGA Tour? And how does that then translate into what the schedule can dictate in the future? So I do think that, as exactly what you said, I think you're going to see big tournaments that mean a lot. I do think that you're going to see a condensed schedule that means, something that is a little bit more like tune in when golf. So to make it so that when you're thinking about golf or you want to go play golf, you're seeing the best of golf. So I do think that sometimes because of the schedule and the venues and things that are being played, that it gets a little spread too thin. So think more parity, more scarcity, and then think bigness for the future. So it should be really exciting. I think all of us here that are working for the tour and everybody here, we're really excited about where the future's going, and we love the players and the storylines that are happening. It's just a really exciting time because more and more behind the scenes stuff is coming out, and more things like Chasing Sunday. There's a big focus on giving the fans something to believe in when it comes to the playoffs, and we'll just see where things go. But there's still a lot of decisions that have to be made.
Yeah, and just to clarify for the audience here, like that, like in other words, in 20 events, that does not include the four majors. Those are their own independent entities. It's like 20 events the PGA Tour runs. It'd be like TPC and stuff like that.
Yeah, and once again, the number of the tournaments, is a little bit more vague as to, how it all works out. But I do think it's important to note that when you turn on the TV, who's playing, the venue, what it means and what the impact is. We want to make the game easier for the fans to absorb and know what you're working and what you're playing for each week, and then what is happening the next week. So I think we're just trying to simplify everything because the FedEx Cup has a lot of different things going on. I think in the past, there have been people who have tuned in and there's two events going on in the same week, and some weeks there's a major, but there's no other event. So we just want to make it so that it flows easier. All the other major sports, it's pretty easy to, follow along. And I think golf just needs to tighten up a little bit what you're tuning in for each week.
Yeah, because I mean, I follow tennis has a similar issue where they're trying to like figure out how to squeeze all these tournaments in and like what matters here, what matters there. Like that's a separate this conversation we have for another day. But those are the Masters here, and obviously we're going into Rory McIlroy looking to defend his crown. He finally wins here. They put the great documentary on Prime Video this week about Rory's finally winning at Augusta here. Now he enters as the defending champ here. What are you looking at for Rory here as he tries to win the green jacket back to back?
Yeah, I mean, I'm very torn on that. Here's really why, right? Because Rory now has no pressure. So, kind of a clear mind Rory going into it, as long as he's healthy and focused. I mean, he can really let loose and play super aggressive and carefree because there is none of that, pressure on him to finally get over the hump. He's done it. So he should really just be in a very good mental state of mind. My biggest question mark is he's only played 3 events on the PGA Tour this season. He withdrew from the Arnold Palmer Invitational. He did finish, T46 at the Players, and he was, I think, tied for second, and he had another top 15 finish between Farmers and Genesis on the West Coast. But he was in good form in February, but we all know that when the calendar switches over to April, everything can change. So, and golf is such a fickle sport in that, one week you can find something and the next you can completely lose it. So it would have been nice to kind of see a little bit more of Rory going into the Masters this year if he was playing a ton. And remember last year he'd won Pebble Beach going into the Masters as well. So like he was really on it last year. So in terms of him repeating, you can't count him out because he's now got that pressure off, but he's got to deal with Scheffler, Schauffele, Fleetwood, Bridgman, Goddard, Batia, and then guys that are also in the field that, like Russell Henley and Patrick Reed will be back, and we know how he plays at Augusta, and Ludwig Aubert and Minwoo Lee, and all these players who have shown great, I guess, expertise at Augusta National, who all now want the jacket. And don't count out Justin Rose. I mean, Justin Rose finished second last year, as we all know, and he's finished second place 3 times at Augusta. So he's hunting still for his first green jacket. And I think we are in a very difficult spot to win back to back.
Yeah, it's a difficult spot here. You mentioned some of those top contenders here. Like, who are you watching here? Who think gives Rory the best run for his money?
Yeah, I mean the favorite still has to be Scotty Scheffler. You can't take that away from him. As we know, he when he really is fine tuning things, we have to know he's grinding right now to he's getting practice rounds in. We have to know that he's getting himself in the best shape possible to win Augusta means a lot. And I think Scotty genuinely, just my personal opinion, is that he wants that jacket on, and he wants it being put back on his shoulders this year, and um, it's redemption for him. He'll turn it up, and I do think that these other favorites that I'm talking about that are pushing are really Justin Rose. I do see Matt Fitzpatrick usually gets off to a pretty good start at Augusta, and he's been playing so well this year. I don't think you can count him out. He, if you think about kind of the narrative, right? Once you win in golf, you kind of like can take that deep breath, like you've done it, you've achieved it by winning on the PGA Tour. When you haven't, when you've been so close, right? You keep that itch to try to get over the top. So I like when I'm going into that to the Masters and thinking about, okay, who can do really well. I like to look at the guys who have like finished second or third a bunch of times this year and might really want to break through because they've been in there recently. They know the feeling of what they need to do to get to the finish line, and they've come up short, so that drive might be even better. So when I'm looking at those two names of Fitzpatrick and Rose, I like those kinds of guys.
Yeah, certainly some fun guys here. Obviously, some sleep. Like we always look for like that sleeper who may not necessarily to win. Like who are some people you're keeping your eye on here and talk like, okay, like maybe this guy is in the top 10 on Saturday and like is lurking to make a run for the green jacket.
Yeah, I think the guy that I like because he's trending the right direction. He had a top 10 finish last year. A Canadian player, Corey Connors. I just really like his game. I think that it fits for Augusta. I think he was T8 last year. I think he can put himself in a really good position. Maybe if he's lurking on the leaderboard, I think he can get it done. He's won PGA Tour events. It's not going to be a surprise if he ever gets to put on the green jacket. And I also like Minwoo Lee. I think Minwoo's game, he shines when the spotlight is its brightest, and I just think that if the fans will get behind him too. So if he can get off to a good start, um, I think that the course, it would be really fun to watch Minwoo on Sunday in the final group holding on to a one-shot lead with, Scheffler hunting right behind. So something like that would be a great narrative and it'd be amazing TV. So those are kind of my two sleepers for this year.
Yeah, and one guy I know you mentioned him before. I want to get your take specifically on him. I mean, it's like Jacob Bridgen won Genesis. He's had a great year so far. It's obviously his first time playing the Masters here. So, like, what's that gonna be like for him now? He's like sort of on the rise, and now he's finally at Augusta with all of these great players. Like, that's a big challenge.
It's pretty remarkable that the number one player right now in the FedEx Cup is coming into the Masters and is kind of like this low key, still really, while, diehard fans of the PGA Tour and know exactly what he can do. It's pretty funny that, you're always, when, Augusta comes up, it's like you're naming all these other guys, but you're forgetting the guy who's arguably playing the best golf right now. And that might work to his advantage, right? Because if the pressure was on him to get it done, I think that maybe you would see, okay, it's a big jump in terms of the pressure to win. But all I'll say is if Bridgman gets off to a good start and he builds any sort of a lead, I don't know if there's anybody that can really catch him. So it's going to be interesting. If he gets off, if you see Bridgman like Friday afternoon and he is in the top five, watch out because his game, he's very even keeled and he's got the temperament in the game where he doesn't really make big mistakes. He makes cuts, and right now he's 8 for 8. So when he plays well. He'll be prepared and he'll be ready to go. So definitely, I wouldn't call him a sleeper. And while you wouldn't call him necessarily a favorite because we haven't seen him do it, he's definitely a wild card.
Yeah, he's like under the radar kind of. Like the best example I can kind of give is like it kind of goes back to tennis. I think if like before Naomi Osaka won her first Open, U.S. Open, I think a lot of people in the tennis world knew who she was and she was playing well, but like she was not like on the number one like radar for like the casual audience, and they sort of figure out how good she was watching that tournament.
Yeah, and that's a really good comparison. And he'll get the marquee win. I would not be shocked if one of the majors he is not in first or second in this year.
All right, so we'll wrap it up here. Obviously, it's a lot of pressure. Obviously, like to give me one winner. So give me like if you had like a handful, okay, like the winner's gonna have like give me five guys. Say one of these five will be the winner. Who are you putting in that group?
Mm. So for me, I love narratives. I love stories. Um, I like seeing, trying to visualize what we're going to be saying 6 months from now about how great this was a finish, like what we saw last year for Rory. For me, it's redemption and a guy who has embodied the game. He's, just one of the guys when you think about the PGA Tour and you think about what he's meant to the game of golf, whether it's been on the international competitive um, tournaments and events, it's Justin Rose. And I think what happened last year and that feeling, Rose, he's, he's like this, how do you say it? He's aggressively polite. So I think he's the kind of guy where he's not going to forget the feeling of finishing second again. And he's going to be fiery, but he's going to be fiery in a way that golf fans will be behind him. He will get them. He's not like going to pull like a villain narrative. It's going to be let's let Rose get that win. Let's root for. Let's get him that marquee moment that he was so close to last year, and let's close the book on that. And I want to see the story close the same way that for Tommy Fleetwood at the end of last year, who was very close to Justin Rose, the same way that we got to see the emergence of Tommy Fleetwood finally get over all of those big feelings of winning the PGA Tour event. I want to see Justin Rose get past the second place finishes and get to put on the green jacket. So I'm all on board with Justin Rose as my top five guy. And if you look at the numbers of what he's done at Augusta, I mean, very rarely has he had a bad year. He's always making the cuts and he's always in the mix. So he's my pick for what I hope to be a great story.
It would be a fun story because it gives, especially with the way he loses last year. And like, again, I'll bring another sports comparison. It reminds me a lot, sort of how like 2016, the NCAA tournament, North Carolina lose that heartbreaker to Villanova on the buzzer beater. They come back next year, they win the whole thing. So I mean, same kind of deal with Justin Rose. If he like loses the playoff to Rory and then comes back and wins the green jacket this year, that'd be fun.
It would be a lot of fun. And I really do hope um, there's just so many guys playing great golf right now and so many big names. It's hard not to think of just like there's 15 to 20 guys. In years past, when you and I have talked about the Masters, there's always been, oh, okay, maybe like three or five guys that we really think, but there's like 20 something guys this year who are all playing, maybe even more, that are playing well enough to win the Masters. So um, I feel like this year has been the hardest year to pick a winner. So I'm gonna go with just recency, not bias, but just once again, I just want the storybook to come to an end, and in a very positive way.
All right, Dan. Thanks for all the time. Really appreciate it. If you want to follow you on social media, keep up with some of your takes. How can I do that?
Sure, DMARC 207, and I will be, hopefully, fingers crossed, I get lucky and I can make it to the Masters this year. Would love to be able to get up there, but we never know how the schedules will go. Sometimes you have to kind of plan for the last minute, and it's a long drive from Florida up there. But if for some reason I'm lucky enough to get up there, I will be tweeting once I can get my cell phone back.